Since I've been looking around YouTube for things to talk about with you guys, I've been a lot of older videos that I watched before that I wanted to talk about are coming up in my timeline. That means I have lots of content to share and review with you guys. I've also been thinking about how I do my videos, and I've settled on a format that I think is going to work. Basically, I'm going to be reviewing YouTube videos for a while. I'm going to leave a link to the video that I review at the end of the video. So I prefer you watch this first if you haven't seen it, then afterwards go check out the video. All right, so let's get into today's video. So there's this YouTuber named Sabbatical. I don't really know him, but he has a huge following, and I guess he goes all over the world. But a few years ago, he was in Japan, and he was in Fukuoka, which is was I had my best memories in Japan, partying with my friends there like over 10 years ago. But anyway, he was in Fukuoka and he met a former Yakuza member who took him out for dinner and drinks and stuff like that. And there's a lot to cover in this video. So I'm going to try and do my best to give you a breakdown of what I see going on in the background to give you some insight if you're ever in this type of situation. Not only just drinking with a Yakuza member, but just going out with a group of Japanese people and you're the only foreign guy even though he can speak some Japanese. I was really impressed by his Japanese, by the way. You can tell he had been studying quite a bit and he had like a pretty good level of fluency, but he made several mistakes that made me cringe a little bit. It wasn't anything that would piss the people he was with off, but it's things that I used to do, when I was fairly new to Japan. And after several more years, I realized that they were kind of big faux pas that no one called me out on, but my relationships with Japanese people got a lot better once I cut those things out. So that's what I'm going to explain to you. So first off, there's a huge long intro in the video. So go ahead and skip forward to like minute number 12 when you watch it. You don't need to really watch the first 12 minutes of it at all. It's just him talking, I don't know, about something. I just kind of gave up on that and fast forwarded until the part where he actually met the guy. Now, the first thing you'll notice is what he's wearing. I don't know about you, but where I'm from, if I'm interacting with like hood people or people who are really hard like that or who have some kind of street experience, I try my best to stay in my own lane. And I'm not knocking Sabbatical. I don't know him. I don't know his history or his pedigree or whatever, but it seemed like he wasn't really familiar with the correct protocol, or maybe he was just doing it for views. But came out in like full Yakuza style attire, which for me was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, like I would be totally nervous walking around dressed like that in the area that he was hanging out in. Basically, he was under the protection of the former Yakuza guy who seemed to be a pretty well respected person in that area. But just taking that for granted and, wearing that type of stuff in that type of environment for me is a little bit not disrespectful, but a little bit cringy, I think. Like, because the only reason why he's allowed to roam, in my opinion, the only reason why he's allowed to roam freely and go through the doors that he was able to go through is because of the rep or the clout of the guy who's showing him around. And to take, free will to just be like, yeah, I'm a new Yakuza recruit. Look at me. It's kind of cringy for me, just from where I'm from and, how I kind of my experiences. So I didn't really like that, but it seems like he really didn't know. So of course, no one will call him out on it. But the guy, he seemed really cool, really chill for who he is. Like you could also tell quite a bit that he's just a low key dude who had a lot of real experiences. And because he's so chill, I feel like Sabbatical kind of took his low key demeanor for friendship, really. And even though he's younger, he kind of would spoke to him kind of like on his same level, or not his same level but in his same realm. And for me in Japan, like when I'm ever around like a company president or a higher level person, it might seem like on the surface, it might seem like you're on their nutsack, but there's a really nuance between like being on someone's nutsack here and like showing them the respect of their position. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you've done all of this in this realm, in this world. I understand the position that you're at, and I'm not like on your nuts, like, oh my gosh, but I'm very much aware of the status that you have. And I understand in this situation, there's a big difference between me and you. And I respect that and give you the proper position in the friendship dynamic that in the relationship that we have. I don't know if it's kind of complicated, but that's kind of how I rationalize those things, and Japanese people recognize that. Like, if you watch the guy that runs up to him, maybe he's a former person in that world and he's kind of on his nutsack. Like, oh my gosh, oh, you're so strong. Oh my gosh, yeah. He's on his nutsack. You know what I'm saying? It's a difference between that and actually like, wow, everyone knows you. Wow, this is really interesting. Thank you so much. Showing your appreciation for the person allowing you to enter their world. Sabbatical just seems like in the Western kind of way we are, oh, this is cool. Oh, great. Hmm, I do this every day, kind of thing. But in Japan, that like if he were Japanese and acting like that with no cameras around, that dude might have just like yelled at him, maybe even beat him down, slapped him around a little bit or something like that, because it's just not seen as respectful of the other person's position. But again, he's a YouTuber and it is what it is, right? So they talk for a while and then you fast forward to the izakaya where they're in. And this is where it gets I think the most interesting part of this video for me, because I've been in several situations like this. I've been in situations where I acted the way sabbatical act, and I've been acting the proper way you're supposed to act. So let me explain. So basically, if you really watch this, he has again, really, I was really impressed by his Japanese ability because I don't know how long he was in Japan, but it took me several years to be able to communicate Japanese with that level of fluency, and he was pretty much holding his own, even though some parts of the conversation he really struggled with. There were two hostesses there. There were a couple other people there, and me. When the girls come around, I'm kind of like, oh hey, but he was just saying whatever in the situation. And I think the way he handled the conversation dynamics were a little bit off. I think first thing I want you to notice, of course, probably like me, you zoom in on the girls, right? That's the first thing you know. Ooh, hey, he's hollering at these girls. They got these girls. But first, I want you to look around at the people in the periphery, right? You got the Yakuza guy in the back. He's just chilling. And that's normally what happens with the most senior person in these type of situations. They will not be main front and center. They're going to be off to the side. Now, he does a good job of paying attention. You got to pay attention to the senior person, and kind of include them, not too much, but enough where they, you're not ignoring them in those type of situations where they feel comfortable and entertained. But if they're busy or whatever, you just let them do their thing. But from time to time, check in. He did a good job of that. I felt uncomfortable how loudly and how much he was saying the word Yakuza, for example, especially in Japanese. You can tell, like, when one of the hostesses said it, she kind of was like, yeah, he's kind of Yakuza. Yeah, but the other guy, yeah, you Yakuza guy. How was it being your Yakuza? Did you kill people, Yakuza guy? And I'm just like, whoa, man, come on. Like, what are you doing? You know, so that was kind of cringe. He really wasn't aware of the situation, I think, and the sensitive nature of that type of situation. Because what if there was someone from a rival gang in there, for example, or a rival gang group, from over there, and they heard it and they had a beef with the dude from way back in the day, and they thought it was their chance to like beat him down. You never know. He doesn't know the dynamics of that situation. So to be so reckless with his words was a little bit cringy for me. I mean, of course, nowadays in Japan, those type of things aren't really going to happen, but just proper etiquette, I think, would dictate like I wouldn't do something like that. If you looked on the right, the other side, there was a really interesting shady looking woman next to him. I think my guess would be she is either a representative of the Yakuza group or part of the one of the hostesses. But the way she dressed, she didn't dress like she was part of the hostess. She might have been, actually, now that I think about it, she might have been a fixer for like an in between middle person between Yakuza group and the hostess world, because she's a woman, but she looks really shady. Like she had a rough life. She's a little bit older, so she might have been like the fixer who brought in some the hostesses. Like, hey, this YouTuber, wants to interview me. Do you have? I want to take him to the hostess bar. Do you have any hostesses who can speak English? And she's like, okay, I'll come along too to make sure everything goes smoothly. I'll bring some girls. And there's another guy, in on to the side, this kind of bigger guy. He's kind of he doesn't say anything either, but if you notice, he goes with them to the next place that they go to. I think he's the guy with the money, is my first impression. Like, I don't think he's really a Yakuza guy. He might be like a company president, owning, maybe even the owner of the hostess bar, for example, or a high level customer who has like a restaurant business or something like that in the world related to the world that they're in, where he has money. So he probably paid for dinner. He probably paid for the hostess bar as well, because they had some pretty expensive drinks on the table there. So they were spending like a few hundred thousand yen or a few thousand US dollars. So I'm guessing he's the guy with the pockets, but he's just off. But he is in their world, they're all lower ranking than the main Yakuza guy, right? Now the girls, another really interesting thing about this is the girls, like how he talked with the girls. So situations like this have happened to me a lot, not only with girls, but just people in general. And I'll just give you some advice that will really help you get along with Japanese people. If you're studying Japanese and you want to, you get to the point where you can communicate in Japanese, you want to practice your Japanese skills and everything like that, and you're in a situation with a lot of Japanese people, maybe almost none of them can speak English very well, or maybe a couple of them can speak English well or kind of, and you want to practice, you're like, it's my time, I can communicate with you guys. That's not your role, okay? In this situation, his role is not to speak Japanese to everyone. Maybe when he was outside only talking alone with the Yakuza guy because there was no one else to translate or things like that. But those two girls were brought along, especially the one who he's mainly speaking in with English, because she can speak English. And her job there is to translate for everyone and facilitate things. Sometimes if you're on a date with a girl, she maybe she can't really speak English, but she might bring her friend who can speak English a lot better than her to facilitate the conversation. So let it happen. That's your job. Let it happen. Maybe the person wants to practice their English. Maybe their job is to communicate with the group better. So you got to think not only, oh, I can communicate by myself. No, the group asks that person to come specifically to help the group communicate in a way that's comfortable for them. That's how this shit goes, in Japan. So you just trying to practice your skills, you're messing up the whole group dynamic or the group flow of the situation. And that's what he was really doing, and it kind of like, you can tell sometimes where it's like, he doesn't know the nuances of how to talk in situations, and even so her job was to kind of smooth things over for everyone, and but he just jump in with some random Japanese stuff that was kind of rough, and he can kind of communicate, but you can tell sometimes you're just like, you know, you just gotta let it happen and go at a pace. His also pacing was off, I think, for communicating in English or in Japanese with people. He's kind of, if you notice, the pace that he talks is really fast and a little bit manic, but they're more chill. You gotta kind of match the energy of people here. And he really, again, I'm not knocking him because I think his Japanese was really well for the level that he's at, and but his social graces were not polished enough. He didn't spend enough time in an all Japanese environment to match the pace. And a lot of times the pace that you talk in and the tone that you talk in is more important than the Japanese words that you speak. All right, so the final section of this, they move to the hostess bar, and this is also really interesting too, because again, you have big guy over there in the corner just acting shady. The Yakuza guy, he's probably in his normal seat, and they're talking and things like that. Y- they talk about hostess bars, which is really uh, a unique place. I'll probably do videos on that in the future as well. But the main thing I want you to notice is that the type of drinks that they have, how the girls are acting. That's their job to act like that. They're of course they're friendly because they're getting paid. That's what they're there to do. They're really professional at it. I've gone to several different types of hostess bars, high grade ones, like probably I've had the experience of going to one of the top 5 hostess bars in Japan. It was super expensive. I've seen it on Japanese TV dramas, the room that I was in. I've also been taken to really, really crappy ones where I'm just like, "Please get me out of here." So a lot of different levels to it. It's a lot more complicated and a lot more nuanced to, "Oh, you're paid to drink and talk to girls, and the girls talk to you, and people pay a bunch of money for this." Actually, the highest level one I went to, I was like, "Okay, I get it. I understand why people come here." It's not about, like, being around pretty chicks, it's about entertainment, just to summarize. Think about it. A person who's going there dropping more than $200, trust me. Like, a person who's going there dropping a few $1,000s on girls, they could go and, go to a soap land or go to like a brothel and get girls if they want to anytime. They want to be entertained, and the high level hostesses are really good at that. It's just a different type of entertainment. It's not necessarily about the physical stuff, it's more about the atmosphere and enjoying yourself with the company of like, you know, attractive, socially graceful and entertaining women. That's kind of what it's about. They're kind of more like decoration to the situation that helps groups or ballers have fun here in Japan. So let me know with the comment what you think about this format. Here's the video that I talked about this time, and another video of mine that you might want to check out if you've already seen the first one.